Morning, everyone, and welcome. Happy to have you with us for Virtual Vanguard, using digital twin technology to preserve and present history. I'm going to start my screen share here. So, there we are. Okay, thank you all so much for joining us. We're happy to have you. My name is Leslie Jones. I'm the Director of Museum Affairs and Chief Curator for the Preservation Society of Newport County. And I'm delighted to be joined by Chris Wilczewski and Adam Blumenthal. Chris is the founder, CEO of Functional 3D, a 3D scanning service and consulting company based in Providence, Rhode Island. And prior to starting his own firm, he was an engineer and account manager at Faro Technologies, which is one of the leading manufacturers of 3D capture technologies. There he had the opportunity to learn and develop workflows in various fields, stations across the US, igniting his passion for technology. He's a member of the Design XRI and the Rhode Island Manufacturing Association. Next we have Adam Blumenthal, who is a visiting scientist at Brown University, who has been producing innovative digital experiences with the world's best-known organizations for more than 25 years. During his career, he has led strategy and production at preeminent Madison Avenue agencies and legends of the entertainment industry, and advised the foremost philanthropies and universities, transform the ways they engage with their audiences through digital media. Adam has a particular interest and specialty in virtual reality at Brown University. He teaches strategy and design for virtual and augmented reality. He also leads a production team at Nuco Brain within the Unit 9 group, named by Campaign Magazine Technology Company of the Year in 2020, and by Adweek as Production Company of the Year in 2019. Adam's work, including his virtual reality experience about the Revolutionary Era attack at Gaspee in Rhode Island, has been the subject of stories in publications such as the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, NPR, Reuters, Billboard, and Rolling Stone, among others. And during the Obama administration, Adam was a guest at the White House for 3 summits with the innovators in education, and he is a frequent speaker on digital innovation. I am joining you today from Newport. What you're seeing on the screen right now is just a preview of some of the technology I'm going to be discussing that the Preservation Society of Newport County has been using to bring our historic sites online. But I'm going to begin today with a little history lesson, so bear with me. We'll first look at the motive by which the modern and Western world has chosen to look at works of art and how reproducing these originals began as an organized conversation in 1860. Which is featured on this screen. It was called the Convention for Promoting Universally Reproductions of Works of Art for the Benefit of Museums of All Countries. Now take that title at face value, because as you can imagine, this convention and its basic outline did not benefit all countries, but those who were involved. It was started by Henry Cole, who was the first director and founder of the South Kensington Museum in London, now known as the Victoria and Albert Museum. He hosted this convention of great minds and power in art, all of whom were, of course, white aristocratic men. But, however, Cole's idea was to create a democratic system to facilitate how original works of art and architecture, sacred to countries and cultures, could, stay in place within their respective countries, but permission would be widely granted for the reproduction of these works of art using the latest technological developments in, quote, plaster casts, electrotypes, photographs, and other processes without the slightest damage to the original. That's verbatim from the document that's on your screen. The basis for this was an education mission, most certainly. For those of you who know a bit about Imperial British or Belgian history, it's a little hypocritical, but because they, as countries and institutions are well known to have works of art from other countries that are not restituted, but I digress. The convention became colloquially known as the Henry Cole Convention of 1860, later ratified at the Great Paris Exhibition by representatives of the reigning families throughout Europe. And this included, for example, Great Britain and Ireland, Prussia, Hesse, Saxony, and France, Belgium, Russia, Sweden and Norway, Italy, Austria, and Denmark. So with all of their great intentions and a seemingly democratic effort to share culture, what were the actual results? The V&A in particular, the 1870s version of technology-driven reproductions was the cast courts, which you're seeing on your screen here. These opened in 1873, and what you're seeing from left to right are first an early photograph of the courts in the museum's former building. In the center, a watercolor of the plan for the new and now current V&A that debuted in 1899, and on the right is a photograph of the hall from around 2017. The V&A describes this two-story gallery as containing, quote, display copies of some of the world's most significant works of art reproduced. The cast collection is famous for including reproductions of Michelangelo's David, Trajan's Column, and Ghiberti's Gates of Paradise, amongst many others. And believe me, there's so much more to dive into here about the Henry Cole Convention and 19th century ideas and technology of reproducing works of art, and all of which that is widely available online. I highly suggest you look into it. But what's important here is that this 19th century convention and its outcome propelled 20th and now 21st century adoption of reproducing works of art, architecture, and material culture for causes that now actually do benefit both local and global communities, which each of our speakers will outline in their talks today. In 2017, UNESCO relaunched Cole's Convention, and the V&A, along with the Perry Foundation, initiated what's called REACH, which is an acronym for Reproduction of Art and Cultural Heritage, with additional mission-based objectives guided by climate change, pollution, terrorism, conflicts, and mass tourism. There is a PDF that is included for our attendees to look at that details what's on your screen here, which are the outcomes of that 2017 convention. Most of the discussion in 2017 was surrounded by the all too frequent occurrence of destruction of Middle Eastern sites as a result of the war on terror. And here we see on the screen the last remains of Palmyra, which unfortunately was largely attacked during 2013 and 2016, which propelled these conversations. So with that important 2017 discussion and the objectives of preservation now added to the dialogue started in 1867, focused on education, 2020 joined the conversation a whole new way, with a fierce force that made institutions like the Preservation Society take action for both duties of preservation and education, but also to create awareness and relevance through using technology. In June 2020, the American Alliance of Museums predicted the United States alone might lose 1/3 of its museums due to forced closings caused by the pandemic. That would include historic sites. So we at the Preservation Society, thankfully, had already brought on a research fellow whose name is Sebastian Dutton in September 2019. And his goal was to research and create a plan to further our goals to digitize our collections, which we had some initiatives already underway with objects, but we were now focused to prepare our buildings for this sort of program. And we began with experimentations in our temporary exhibition spaces, slowly but surely developed plans to eventually digitize all of our sites. Now, some of the many factors that we wanted to keep in mind were the ease of public access and usability using this technology from a visitor user perspective, existing technology that is readily available and cost effective because we are a nonprofit institution, we can't afford to build our own technology, and technology that's easily trainable that would allow our existing staff to continue the work to edit and change what we're able to produce on the back end. And there are, of course, many other factors, but these were the three primary ones. And I am sure that there are opinions out there or other technologies that others might think are better suited for what we set out to achieve, but what we ended up going with was Matterport, which was originally designed for the retail industry, real estate industry, excuse me. And Matterport has worked significantly well for us. This is by no means an ad for Matterport either, but it has facilitated all of the needs that we have set out to achieve. And we've been really pleased to see other institutions in Rhode Island also use this technology, including the Rhode Island State House, and I believe also Trinity Church here in Newport is about to take on a similar. So this small portable camera that you see on your screen is mounted on a tripod and placed strategically around the room throughout all of our spaces and capturing panoramic views from floor to ceiling. With all the images then taken, the technology stitches the files together and creates a virtual tour, one we can walk through at our leisure. So here's an example of Kingscote, demonstrating the features of room exploration as well as the multi-level dollhouse perspective, which is again a result of the images being stitched together through Matterport technology. Slideshow. Okay. And as I stated earlier, we first began experimenting with this technology to capture our temporary exhibitions at Rosecliff. And with these scans, you can see here also on our website, newportmansions.org, there are features to add audio files and hotspots where object labels and explanatory text can be included. Aside from the obvious benefit of the visual virtual offerings we can now share with the public, Matterport also captures measurements and imperial metrics, which help us create whole floor plans through its captured images. We've also even tested this out, and it gives us great accuracy, so we know the technology works. And this is further into our preservation initiatives, because what it produces, as you see here on the screen, is an incredible floor plan layout that's actually visual through 3 dimensions. So with all of our sites closed for nearly 4 months last year and our ability to only open one at a time, we were still able to reach the public and share our sites and their important histories through. And as of April 20th, this week, we've had over 100,000 unique visits in less than a year. That's 100,000 people who've connected with us, engaged with history, and we hope found the beauty of these collections as a means of education or even just enjoyment during such difficult. And as we have now completed all of our historic interiors being scanned, we still have work to do. Our next objectives are to add loaned object information to the works of art that are on view in each of our virtual visits, after which we hope to possibly add thematic information for customized experiences such as school virtual visits for grade schools or high school classes and programs. We're also excited to learn more about Matterport's potential for scanning objects in the round as part of our continued efforts to digitize and make our collections available online. And what we are doing here is just a small piece of the bigger and really incredible picture our field is entering into through the digitization of artwork. On your screen is an example from the Prado Museum in Spain, where they've employed a version of 3D printing and replication to enhance surface level texture of 2-dimensional works of art for people with low vision or vision impairment for tactile engagement. Other institutions are using 3D scanning and printing technology to create full replicas of buildings for people with visual impairment. This is a project I worked on at the White House Visitor Center, which debuted in 2015. Full model replica of the White House's exterior is specifically designed for people to interact with from a tactile perspective if they have low vision or vision impairment. The Museum of Natural History is doing educational programs with printed bones from their collections for students to replicate dinosaur skeletons. Some institutions are also using this as a means of the autism spectrum as a way to positively engage with museum collections. The benefits really are boundless. Other important objectives can be achieved with this rapidly changing technology, which I am now so pleased to hand over to my fellow panelists to explore from their perspectives. So with that, Chris, I will let you take it from here.
Let me remember to unmute. Thank you so much, Leslie. That was great. I love seeing it. As mentioned, my name is Chris Wilczewski, and let me start the sharing on. Adam, you taking over?
No, not yet. Not trying to jump in line. Sorry.
All right, I can't screen. Okay, there we go. There we go. Share on my side, and there we go. So thank you, everyone, and Leslie. This is awesome. I love seeing all that stuff in action. And so, as mentioned, I started. My name is Christopher Wilczewski, and I started Functional 3D after a number of years working for Faro Technologies, one of the manufacturers of 3D capture tech. And so what I did is I started off by getting a couple of units over here. So we have a 360 camera and my LiDAR unit. And then we have over here my structured light scanner, and we're going to go into talking about the technologies, different types of capture technologies. As Leslie mentioned, they're using the Matterport and for their purpose, for what they're trying to accomplish, and it's really given them an excellent way to engage people. And so I hope that we kind of talk about the different technologies that are out there, and then some of the other applications that scanning and digitizing of the real world, specifically in this case historical preservation pieces, really enhances and can involve people in a much more unique way that they weren't able to before. So first and foremost, I'm going to talk quickly, so please feel free to throw questions into the question and answer section. I will get to those once I'm done, but I do have a bunch to get through. So starting off, we have cameras and photography. You can actually create 3D imagery from camera information. You got to take a lot of them, and it takes a lot of processing power. You need, for most of these requirements, need a lot of processing power. Typically a PC, Macs just don't cut it. Just mostly the software isn't there. And so take lots of photos around an object. The computer chugs on that information. There's a couple of specialty pieces of software, including one that I know of as open source, completely free to use. And you can take a number of photos around the object, bring it into the computer, let it process and work on it, and then it stitches that information together. Just as with any of these, there's going to be a lot of nuance to them. We're using, in most of the cases, light to capture information. So things that are objects that are shiny and may be very difficult to capture, and can cause some challenges. With the next up, we have the handheld structured light or laser line scanner. These are very portable objects, and there's a wide range of them available, both in price and capabilities. So things that can determine that are going to be the level of quality of data you're getting from them, the accuracy, the resolution of information. You can imagine high density of three-dimensional information versus a very spread out version of that, and so you can really get around and move around. Now there are some challenges with it's called tracking. You can imagine as it's trying to put these three-dimensional snapshots together, it needs to be able to understand where each one of those was taken from. And so to do that, it needs information either from the object itself with some high contrasting information of the object, or the other method that is often used, especially if someone's trying to get very accurate information, is through a sticker dots that you'll put on your object. Following that, we've got scan arm or structured laser line. And so you can actually, that base of that arm is stationary, the object itself is stationary, and then you move the scan head around manually. Because of that and the encoders in each one of those rotational positions, it can understand its angle of attack. Therefore, you don't need any of those markers. Now, obviously, that's a lot larger than the handheld unit, so it has its own applications and purposes. Laser scanners, so we're going to be talking about LiDAR here. Very, very similar to the way that the Matterport works, but the LiDAR uses a single laser line. Think about a measuring tape, a digital measuring tape, but it can take up to 1 million points per second. And some of the units have an accuracy of about plus or minus 1 millimeter. The longest range units can go up to 1 kilometer away. So you can capture very large buildings, both interior and exterior. You can capture high detail information, and it also fits in well. I've used it multiple times between laser scanning and that camera photogrammetry side of things to combine the two together. So you get a really high quality visual while also keeping the accuracy of the actual measurement data that you've taken from the field. We also have stationary structured light. I partner with Smart Tech 3D. I'm a distributor for them. And so I offer that not only as a service scanning, but also purchase. Stationary structured light is wonderful in the preservation space because of its ability to not only color correct, so we can actually go through the photos, run a color correction on them, but we can also time up studio lighting, so we can get a really even lighting and get great color representation, as well as the details and information of the geometry itself. And finally, CT scan. Many of you have probably seen some History Channel shows where you're able to see inside of a mummy. These are great applications for it. Unfortunately, obviously, CT scans are limited in size oftentimes. There's some commercial ones that are for larger objects, but the medical field ones are really the ones that are accessible in the historical space, are the most easily accessible, and so they are limited on size. And then also can be a challenge to get involved with. So there's got to be some partnerships made there. So we have this is most of the primary methods of 3D capture that are out there, and that would be used in historical preservation. So now that we know about some of these tools that we can use to capture data out in the real world, what can we do with them? Right, so we're going to be diving deeper into the historical preservation, but in other areas, in other industries, we've got industrial design. You can think of a car, for example, if you wanted an accessory that perfectly fits the interior of the car to hold your phone and match up perfectly with your the shapes, these organic and swooping shapes inside your car. That can be really hard to take measurements of. Calipers are just not going to cut that. And same thing for anything else that you can just think of around you. Do you want something to perfectly fit or mate with something else? It can be very challenging to get that geometry. So scanning really helps with that. Architecture and construction. So everything from large swaths of land for survey purposes, understanding topo surfaces, things like that. You can bring that and scan that with that lighter type of scanning capabilities. Also on the interior side, you may want what is called as-built drawings. And so you want highly accurate information from the inside. Where is everything? Where are those windows? In order to make modifications. And the example I have in the photo here is actually a mechanical room. These can be extremely challenging for, in industry, where how do I know where all this stuff is? You can imagine trying to plot that in 3D space and redraw it with, even a laser measuring tape would make that very, very difficult. Manufacturing, one of the biggest users of smaller scale 3D print or 3D scanning is in the manufacturing space. Is the part I just made to my spec? Did it come out the right way? And if not, then what do I need to change? And finally, another visual medium is film, video games, virtual reality. Anytime you need either set extensions and you want to put a building in where it doesn't belong, or you want to create some props that don't actually, aren't actually physically being held, you need a digital version of it, a digital copy, a digital twin. So these are the different, some of the different industries that also use this technology. And so we're going to be talking about, though, how it's used in history, in historical preservation. So first and foremost, that easy visual interaction. This right here is not a video. This is actually a 3D file put into PowerPoint, and it is just rotating on its own. This is for the Rhode Island Marine Archaeology Project that I did some scanning for. And so it just provides a really easy method of interaction to see your object in 3D. Taking that one step further, and that could be on a device like a phone or a tablet or on your computer. Taking that one step further, I like the augmented reality experience. This is where you can actually put a digital object in your real life setting. So right here we have, there's my son climbing on the real Abraham Lincoln statue. And then my augmented reality scan, this is in Roger Williams Park in Providence. And so you can see on the left, we have the statue of Abraham Lincoln, and on the right, or the augmented reality version, and on the right, we have the real world version, standing side by side. And I think it's a fun, but you could put him anywhere on your coffee table and you could walk around him. So it gives you that ability, or you could take a selfie with him for if you want, and some of the other monuments as well. So this is actually going along with what Leslie spoke about, is engaging people with visual impairments and difficulty seeing. This is a scan of a boat, a model. So it's a very delicate handmade model that was done years ago. and it just didn't allow for people that were visually impaired to touch because it would break. And so the process was to scan it, to 3D print it, and then really to make it robust and work long term, that was used to then create a casting. So it's made in metal, so it can really be touched and felt, and it brings out all the details of that ship for people with visual impairments to appreciate and enjoy when they otherwise wouldn't be able to. We've got here is an artifact from the University of Warsaw. Many of these, if you're noticing some of the Polish names, 3D SmartTech 3D, the manufacturer of the 3D scanner I work with, is based in Warsaw. So I took a few of their projects that they've worked on as well. So this is a project that they worked on, they supported, and the University of Warsaw scanned and digitized this artifact, and then they went through, and you can see on the bottom left of my slide, they actually digitally added what that rim would have looked like, and that also gave them a place on that, if you look on the bottom right now, where some of the pieces that were available that are still there were then be able to place on there. So you can see what it should look like as a general shape. It's added, it was 3D printed and then painted to match. And so now you get a good look of what that artifact would have looked like in its when it was made. Another area is, I think Leslie mentioned some of the bones, but here's a Nicholas Copernicus skull that was his skull that was digitized, captured, and then was able to be 3D sculpted. So someone was able to then sculpt. You can imagine, not very easy to get your hands on a skull and be able to then start sculpting clay onto. So to be able to do that digitally and offer that, you can then create a 3D sculpture from that information to understand, give an idea, a representation of what Nicholas Copernicus may have looked like at the end of his life. Canvas painting, this is another one, because the level of accuracy that some of these scanners can offer. This is the structure light scanner. Deformation of canvas, a canvas piece of art. So on the left, you can see it being scanned, and then on the right and the center top, you can see kind of how that deviation performs. So on the far right, we've got that heat map. So green means it's within the tolerance that we want it to be. Blue means it's low, and yellow means it's high. And you can see that in that cross section as well. So a plane would be fitted. A digital plane essentially is fitted to the surface of in the computer, and then you can analyze how those points deform from that, and that can then give you an understanding of how is this piece doing, either in storage or out, if there's any problems with it, if there's anything that needs to be addressed, can be addressed because we can see it, whereas you wouldn't be able to measure this type of information pretty much any other way. It's got to be a non-contact method. And bringing things a little more locally, a wonderful team at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. I know some of the museum's imaging department, and they are a phenomenal team, and they did put together an augmented reality experience middle of last year that came out. And so you can place this artifact on a table in front of you. And actually they added, and I think Leslie mentioned this about the Matterport app, was audio files. And one of their directors goes through this artifact specifically, talks about it. So they're kind of either in your ear or coming out of your phone. And they tell you to not only like move around the object, but also what to look for specifically and what makes it important. So it was a really amazing experience that they put together, and something that could only be done with the capabilities of 3D capture. Another one, the Smithsonian did a phenomenal job on the Apollo 50th anniversary. I think that was about 2 years ago now. And so there's a ton. The Smithsonian has probably one of the largest collections of 3D files that you can then view. So that's all in that kind of viewable range, and that's at 3d.si.edu if you want to experience any of that. and they have some wonderful works and pieces of history that you can experience there. And I said I was going to talk fast. I think I got through it in my allotted time, and so I appreciate everyone's time. There's so much more. If you could probably tell, I really enjoy all this stuff. So please reach out if you have any questions that we don't get to in the questions and answers. There's my email, my web address. I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook. So I want to thank again everyone for their time. And with that, I will stop sharing and pass everything off to Adam.
That was awesome, Chris. Thank you. I hope we have a chance to work together sometime.
Thanks. Yeah, I look forward to it.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about a virtual reality project I've been working on for a couple of years now, about the story of the attack on the Gaspee in Narragansett Bay here in Rhode Island in 1772. In my professional life, I wear two hats. I've been an adjunct faculty member at Brown for the past 5 years, and I teach courses in the design of VR experiences. I'm also a partner at a digital innovation company called Unit 9, which is based in London. At Unit 9, I work with other educational institutions like Arizona State University, which I'm going to talk about. And I work with social impact organizations and corporations to help them transform what might be considered sort of educational or informative material into experiences. My work at Brown and in industry is user experience design. And more specifically, I design digital experiences. These are computer-based, so websites, mobile apps, video games, and virtual reality, where computer technology enhances, or even in some cases, this is the goal, to transform an experience between an organization and its audience. My focus in digital experience design is in three main sectors: healthcare, education, and work with cultural institutions. The reason I focus on these types of organizations is because I spent a lot of time in the entertainment industry. I spent a lot of time in advertising, and I'm at a point in my career where I'm interested in social impact and doing good. And also because for the most part, these kinds of organizations are the least mature in terms of using new digital technologies to engage their audiences. So there's a lot of opportunity to do transformative work. Today, I'm going to show you a digital experience that I developed to tell the story of the 1772 attack on the British naval vessel, the Gaspee, in Narragansett Bay. I used the story of the Gaspee as the centerpiece of an educational experience that teaches students about the events that led to the American Revolution and to the signing of the Declaration of Independence. My work creating digital experiences for teaching and learning is inspired by the following two quotes from Confucius and Benjamin Franklin, saying basically the same thing. For a long time, we've known that an important factor in the learning process, maybe even the key to learning, is active learning, engaging learning, experiential, hands-on, participatory learning. Yet this image really summarizes the state of education in America. Here's the reason or the context. In the last 100 years, we've gone from the Model T to the Tesla, and we've gone from the Wright brothers to the moon. And here's the second image today, or slide today, with a typewriter and a tablet. We've gone from the typewriter to the tablet. The adoption of innovative technologies has disrupted and transformed practically every industry and many ways of life. Yet in the same 100 years, our schools have barely changed. Schools and museums and healthcare providers, for the most part, have not taken advantage of digital tools to enhance their users' experiences. So this is why my work focus is in these fields. Meanwhile, there's a very high degree of digital maturity in the entertainment industry, the news and social media and video games, and being ubiquitous as they are, they've changed audiences' expectations and their preferences for how they consume information. It's probably even the case that the brains of digital natives are wired differently than previous generations, making digital innovation not just a novelty, but maybe a requirement. So in my work in education, my goal is to design effective learning experiences that are as compelling or as engaging as the entertainment that students consume. Arizona State University also believes in this kind of design for teaching and learning. For the past 5 years, 5 years in a row, ASU has been named the most innovative university in the U.S. And more than most, they're investing in developing new digital forms of teaching and learning. So I've had the pleasure of working with ASU to help them launch a new online high school called ASU Prep Digital to design VR experiences for some of their courses. I'll show you some of the tools that I used in creating the Gaspee VR experience, and hopefully it will trigger some ideas about things that you can do. First of all, I wanted to just briefly describe what virtual reality is, or VR. VR is a technology that uses an advanced pair of, at this point, very clunky glasses that replace one's view of the real world with a 360-degree view of another world that's created with a computer. So the visuals are 360 degrees. One can look up and down and all around. With headphones, the sound is also 360 degrees, so one can hear noises that may sound far away or up close, in front or behind, left or right. And some VR systems also have a sense of touch, so one can reach out and interact with digital objects. In some, VR experience or VR technology creates an experience of being immersed in an artificial environment, in a simulation, and one has a very strong feeling of presence, so it's a great technology for presenting history. For the Gaspee project, I used a very simple VR technology called Google Cardboard, which is literally a cardboard box with a place that holds a phone. And the reason I use this platform is because it's very inexpensive. It's a $5 or $6 box, and it only requires a smartphone to run the experience, so it's very accessible. The cardboard box has two lenses through which one sees the screen of the phone that's behind the lens, and the phone is presenting the visual and audio media. So the user holds this box up to their eyes, and as they move around, looking in front and up and down and behind them, they're immersed in this 360-degree virtual world. In the Gaspee VR experience, we created this journey through time from Roger Williams to the Revolution. And as users move along this sort of visual timeline, they encounter objects and artifacts and uncover experiences. Each interaction leaves them with some collected items. We're using a bit of a game mechanic of collecting objects. And these artifacts and objects are entered into a journal or a scrapbook, which the students refer to later when they're doing an assignment based on their experience. Many of the encounters in the Gaspee experience along this visual timeline open up experiences in a first-person perspective so that students have the feeling of being there, albeit in a stylized reality. To create the Gaspee VR experience and the user journey of exploring history, I used a few different kinds of media. Leslie and Chris have mentioned a few of the types. I used primary source artifacts. I used digital 3D objects, 360-degree videos, and lots of original art. I spent a lot of time in the Rhode Island State Archive with the collection of Gaspee papers, and I also went to the National Archive in London to get the British side of the Gaspee story. Some of these primary source materials are embedded in the VR experience, and they're discoverable as the user or the student is moving through the experience. And other primary source material that I collected were used to inform the design of 3D digital models. So, for example, these on the right side are some specs from a very well-documented British naval vessel called the Sultana. The Gaspee was not very well documented, but the Sultana was considered a sister ship to the Gaspee in the British naval fleet. And so we used these specs of the Sultana to create a digital 3D model of the Gaspee. Then we brought the 3D model into our virtual world, and that gave users the chance to board the Gaspee and to inspect it and to get a sense of its scale, get a feeling for what it was like to be on the ship in Narragansett Bay. Another technology that I used quite a bit is 360-degree video. It's technology similar to the Matterport camera, although the Matterport takes still images, and I was using technology that takes video images. So this is a special new type of camera that doesn't just take a shot like a camera does, a shot of whatever's in front of the camera, but these cameras take a 360 photo or video of the entire room or environment where they're set. For several parts of the Gaspee story, I worked with historic reenactors in historic locations. This is Buckman Tavern in Lexington, Massachusetts. It's a beautifully well-preserved 18th century tavern, which took the place of Sabins Tavern, which was the Providence Tavern where the colonial raiders met before they rode down to the Gaspee. The real Sabins is no longer exists. I also, to depict a scene where King George III is notified that His Majesty's schooner, the Gaspee, had been attacked, looted, and burned, I was able to use the Gold Room at Marble House in Newport. Even though this room is very Louis the something, I appreciated the very regal and majestic vibe that I wanted for the scene with King George III. Here's a scene from the Colony House in Newport. We're recreating the testimony from the British Admiral in the same room where the King had ordered a commission set up to investigate the attack on the Gaspee. And then this is a shot in the Stephen Hopkins house off of Benefit Street in Providence, where Stephen Hopkins carried on a secret correspondence with Sam Adams in Boston. 360 videos can be viewed in a VR headset, but as Leslie showed, they can also be shown on a flat screen. So you can publish a 360 video to YouTube and use your mouse or your finger to rotate through an environment. Lastly, I had a team of artists who created original visual media that was inspired by the many well-known depictions of the Gaspee incident that have been painted over the years. Dramatic paintings like these that were done over the last few decades were one of the more important inspirations to me as I thought about how I might make a scene with a feeling of one of these paintings, but which could be inhabited by users. So I commissioned a painter to recreate the attack on the Gaspee by painting a 360-degree painting. It was sort of the equivalent of unwrapping a globe and painting the map experience. And then we animated the painting and brought it into the VR experience. So these slides are snapshots of a 360-degree painting. If you're looking at it with VR glasses or looking at it on a screen, you can look left and see the who's in the boat next to you, or you can look behind you, you can look to the right, you can look everywhere. And students can have that feeling of being there in this stylized and painterly VR scene. Users feel as if they're among the raiding party as they approach and attack the ship, capture the crew, and then set the vessel on fire. Burning the Gaspee VR is at the moment being published to the Apple and Google stores, and it'll be available for free by June of this year, in time for the annual Gaspee Days celebration in Rhode Island. When I started the project using a 360-degree camera, this was about 6 years ago. This is a very new technology, and Google's VR group gave me this very fancy camera rig that they developed with GoPro. This system had 16 cameras, 16 lenses kind of stitched together, and a huge battery that weighed like a car battery. At the time, it was a $20,000 camera, but now, 5 years later, the Google system is obsolete, and what was $20,000 has come down to a couple hundred or a few $100s. So creating 360-degree videos has become a very economical way to share immersive experiences of places. And as I said, these can be viewed in a VR headset or on a computer or mobile device. Leslie showed virtual reality tours of real estate, so I'll skip that one. And I'll just say that this session is called Virtual Vanguard, and we've shown you some fancy stuff here, but as with all digital technology, the gear that we are using is getting much cheaper. The techniques we use are getting much easier, and therefore these kinds of experiences are becoming much more common. So I think it's a good time to check these out for your own interests. And if I can be helpful, please feel free to reach out to me. And then we'll turn that off. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adam. That was great. Chris, as well, cannot thank you both enough for sharing your information with us and your perspective. I think for our audience, you can tell that technology can be developed for a variety of needs as well as skill levels. Obviously, my panelists are much more skilled and adept at technological uses, but it's great to know that there are accessible ways for everyone, regardless of your knowledge and background, these ways to bring things. Wanted to remind everyone to please put your questions in the Q&A portion of the technology we're using currently. We have about 5 minutes left until the session ends. I think what's really great is from all of our different perspectives, we're all sort of arriving still at the same core mission, which is important. Adam, I really liked how you discussed the idea of education being at the forefront of what propelled you to do the work that you do. And I'm wondering, from your own experience, first engaging with this kind of technology, how did that inspire you to keep going and take it to the degree that you've taken to now?
Well, I've been a computer user my whole life. I think of myself as maybe one of the oldest members of the digital native generation. So it started as a hobby for me and became my work in university and then my career. So it's my passion and my profession. And it's exciting to work in places where the quality bar is pretty low for digital experiences, like in education, and to do things, simple things or fancy things that get students really excited about learning. So that's why I keep doing it. I love the work.
And Chris, you come from a perspective of working for company, not necessarily from an educational motive, but you're motivated for education as well. What are some of the hardest projects you've worked on in terms of using this and getting it right in education?
Wow. Yeah, you know what? Actually, some of the hardest ones is a few of the monuments in when you're dealing with the shiny metal, the monuments at Roger Williams Park, at the North Burial Ground, a couple of things that I've worked on can be very, very challenging dealing with lighting conditions, especially outdoors where you don't have control over that. And you're just dealing with, I hope the weather holds out. I hope it doesn't rain on me. But, you know, when you get it right and, you know, you end up with something like this. You know, I love also, you know, kind of to Adam's point too, though, the education. I love involving my son in everything. Like he literally understands 3D printing more than he understands what a 2D like regular paper printer is. Like he's excited. You know, it's an amazing experience to get that technological, and it is so accessible now. I mean, 3D printers are cheaper than video game systems these days. I mean, a basic 3D printer that is very functional and capable can introduce, I think, children to a whole world of possibilities. And you know, I saw in one of Adam's slides, Fusion 360, which is more of a CAD application. They've got it's a professional, right? You know, entry level professional app. It's free for hobbyists. All right, so Autodesk is throwing in, you know, their hat to helping people get educated and up to speed. And you know, here's down your neck of the woods is the Newport Tower, little miniature.
Amazing accuracy on that one.
Yeah, it came out really, really well. And then to get the top, so I did the LiDAR scans from the bottom, and then to get the top was that photogrammetry with a drone. So able to get the full geometry, right? All that detail and data by combining a couple of different methods. I think. Oh, we did have a question, Adam. Do you see any improvements to the clunky headset? Go.
Yes, computer technology always gets smaller, faster, and cheaper. So it won't be too long before VR glasses are like this size.
That's the Quest right there.
Oh,
yeah, that's the Quest right there. So that's and those are about $300 and completely self-contained. So already that's the size they are. You don't need a computer. It runs right on its own, and you can download applications right to it.
Yeah, it's getting better.
Well, I believe at 10:50 we are supposed to be getting to a wrap-up position, and I apologize. It seems we must have a delay also in our video and audio. But I just want to thank everyone for coming and for listening to our series. Thanks to Chris and Adam and Enrita for facilitating. And please get in touch with any of us if you have any questions about our projects. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thanks, Leslie.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Leslie. Take care, everybody.